Let's talk to Will Kingston, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. Morning, Will.
G'day, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very well indeed. Astonishing story on the front page of the Sun this morning. The numbers of sheer amounts of money being spent. 582,000 workers would pay the same amount of tax as £4.7 billion. So basically, the Sun have worked out that a city the size of Manchester is basically providing in tax the money that we're spending on migrant hotel bills. £4.7 billion. Doesn't even include the legal fees, doesn't even include the medical costs, doesn't even include, all the various, assistance and service that these people get. This is simply the hotel bill.
Mike, it is shocking. I spoke to Tony Abbott a couple of weeks ago. Tony was the Prime Minister of Australia, who stopped the vote successfully. And he said, as part of his policy to stop the votes, is harshness, unfortunately, is the point. Yeah. You have to be harsh to create a disincentive to come. I don't understand. Maybe you can help me. I just do not understand why the first action of this government, if they're saying that they actually do want to smash the gangs, is to move these people from hotels, cushy hotels, to detention centres. They may not be able to get to offshore detention centres, but I just don't understand why you would not put them in detention centres in the UK immediately. Right. Why are they not doing it?
I know. It seems incredible, doesn't it, that they won't even consider doing it. I mean, we've got a place called Manston, which is where some of them are taken. It's an old airfield just off the coast, or just in by the Kent coast there, not far from Dover. And it's a sort of a holding place where they can sometimes take people. But it's not a detention centre, it's a place where people are taken, but it's not like, they're under lock and key. We should have loads of these places. We should have, you should be instantly put in a detention centre, until such time as your asylum claim is either, accepted or rejected. And if it's rejected, then you should be deported. Simple as that, really.
Well, there are legal ways to seek asylum and illegal ways. It is illegal to seek asylum by getting on a dinghy, going over the channel and trying to get into the UK that way. There are plenty of legal channels by which you can seek asylum to the United Kingdom. So we've got to remember that. We've got to remember that 80 to 90% of them are economic migrants anyway. Yeah, they're coming from France. They were perfectly safe at Calais. And B, if they've decided to take this route to the UK and stepped over people who have decided to go via the legal means to seek asylum, then they are really jumping the queue. And by the way, it is fighting age men jumping the queue over women and children. And I think, to be honest, that is morally abhorrent.
Yeah, absolutely right. And everybody can see it, from the number of people driving around on mopeds delivering food to, the people hanging around on the streets to, the fighting that's going on. I mean, I reported on this some weeks ago that there was two different groups of Eritreans fighting on the streets of Sheffield, right? Because one of them was pro the Eritrean government and somebody else and the other group wasn't. And you're kind of going, well, why are they fighting in Sheffield? What are they doing here? America has just banned people from 12 countries under Donald Trump's regime, right? He's basically said Eritreans, Sudan, the Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, Iran, a whole bunch of countries, many of whom have asylum seekers coming here from there, have just been banned from entering America. Why don't we just do that?
Yeah, well, we should. This is the thing. We know that someone from Eritrea or Somalia are statistically infinitely more likely to commit crimes than someone from a country that has comparable values to the United Kingdom. I genuinely don't understand why we are shooting ourselves in the foot in this way. Well, I do understand. It is that self-flagellating instinct that so many Western countries now have, and that this Labor government is the worst example of. But the fact is, I think we now need to seriously consider a policy where we do not take anyone from a country which is significantly statistically more likely to commit violence towards women or to commit crimes of any nature. To me, that just is common sense.
Yeah, I think absolutely right. And people are getting more and more fed up, because even, reasonable people have a breaking point. And when reasonable people see that people are being treated unfairly, people that live in this country and have paid their taxes for years and years, can't get access to a doctor, can't get access to a hospital, can't get seen in an A&E department, and yet these people get fast-tracked. As soon as they come into the country, they can access doctors, they can access dentists, they're given priority when they go to A&E departments. It's absolutely staggering, isn't it?
Yeah, I really struggle to comprehend it. I think our political class have forgotten that your first responsibility as an elected official is to represent the people who voted for you. you see these sorts of kind of greeny activists who are continuously talking about Gaza or continuously talking about things happening on the other side of the world. And you realize that, to be honest, actually sorting out the UK is hard and it's a bit boring. Like tax policy is boring, like economics is boring. But, you know, if you want to kind of moralize over Gaza, that's sexy to someone who is, you know, a Greens MP or a Labor MP. And to be honest, we need to get back to that point of just doing the basics well in this country. And basically, unfortunately, too many politicians think that their job is overseas as opposed to in the United Kingdom.
Well, that's what we get. We get Keir Starmer shooting off to Canada, apparently, coming up this week. According to a piece of the Times today, he's going off to see his mate Mark Carney, because he's the only other sort of lefty leader in the G7. They're going to tackle their trade problems, apparently. But he's playing with fire a bit there, because, of course, you know, Donald Trump and Mark Carney don't get on terribly well. And Mark Carney, it was full of bluster before he went to see Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and then was like quiet like a little mouse when he was sitting there, is a guy, I don't think, who's got anything to offer Keir Starmer. Why the hell's he going there?
Because it's easy, because it's comfortable, because there are real problems in the United Kingdom, and you can look statesman-like if you go overseas and you shake hands with dignitaries. I actually don't think Trump will pay any attention to it, to be honest. I think he would see it as beneath him. Expect more of these sorts of trips coming up in the next year or two, Mike, because, to be honest, the country is in real trouble. And the one way, and you've seen this with Ukraine, the way that Starmer's handled Ukraine, the one way you can kind of look prime ministerial is by going overseas and shaking hands and doing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's much harder to be a prime minister at home.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I mean, bizarrely, one of the things that happened over the course of the weekend was that England were playing a match, a football match against Andorra, and the crowd could be heard shouting expletives about him. Alan says this: never in my lifetime watching football have I heard England fans being political by venting their feelings towards a prime minister. Even Thatcher, who was hated by many, was never abused on the terraces. You sense something is bubbling on our streets over their contempt of this Labour Party, and it's a good measure of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, like I've heard politicians in Australia and the United Kingdom get bagged by crowds in that way. I've never heard it quite that vitriolic. But the other thing that I would say is Keir Starmer has to be incredibly careful, because everyone in the Conservative Party and the Labor Party are basically saying, well, reform are just a protest vote. They don't have any real policies whatsoever. They'll blow up. What that shows in that crowd is people don't care. I don't think people really care about reforms policies. I don't think people really care about their economic philosophy or their position on Ukraine or whatever. Yeah. They just go, things are so bad, any alternative will do. And I think that's what the Conservatives and Labor aren't
getting. That's how Labor got in the first place. I mean, so we should be aware of that sort of thing. Because, right. I mean, as I always say, they didn't win the election, the Tories lost it. But let's have a look at Peter Kyle, who's the Minister for Science and Technology, talking about Keir Starmer getting that abuse.
Last night, an anatomical word, which I can't use on Sunday morning, was chanted about the Prime Minister. It had 4 letters in it. Isn't it really early in your term of office for that level of unpopularity?
I'm not a football follower. I only watch when the Brighton and Hove Albion are playing, and I don't think the fans of Brighton would use such words against about Keir. It's football. It's football chanting. It's part of the. Is it not part of the spirit of the game?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so. No. It's not normally what they do, is it? They don't normally start shouting that word about the Prime Minister. In fact, they've never done it, as far as I know.
But also, how politically inept can you be as a UK politician to start that sentence with, I'm not a football follower? Like, you at least have to pretend that you follow a team and you do that. Like, these guys just aren't particularly good at politics. Let's face the facts. And yeah, it points to a seething anger in this country, which is very obvious to everyone on the street.
Yeah. And just going back to reform for a moment, what did you make of the shenanigans over the weekend and the last few days? Because obviously, you know, I think when we were around, I think it was last Thursday, wasn't it? That Yusuf basically resigned and said he didn't want to be chairman anymore. He seemed to have had a bit of a spat with Sarah Poachin. And then 2 days later, he's got an interview in the Sunday Times saying, I'm back. You know, I was really, really tired, and so I had to resign, but now I'm going to come back and do something else.
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, the operations are obviously very messy if that sort of stuff is happening. And you can probably expect that to start up a political party. I think the deeper issue is the issue of Islam will continue to be a dividing line in that party through to the next election. Obviously, that was the issue that broke that initially. 90% of the base, I would suggest, would not think that Islam is compatible with Western liberal democracy. Maybe 80%, maybe 80%. And yet at the same time, you now have it.
No, I think you were probably right the first time. I think it probably is 90%. I think also an awful lot of people who want reform to be successful are not that bothered by the internal machinations of what goes on between the personalities.
Yeah, that's right. And I think people are done with this incorrect assumption that just if you have legitimate concerns about the compatibility of Islam with Western liberal democracy, you're somehow racist.
Yeah.
I think people are past that now.
Yeah.
And I think that the look of having Zia Yusuf as chairman riled a lot of people up. I think he's now gone back into a back office role that's probably politically intelligent, but it's going to continue to be a dividing line in that party.
Yeah, I think so. Will, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Will Kingston, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast.